We've had so many people call us up, say, hey, I was going to have my toes removed, but now by soaking my feet, I have my toes. Like, I didn't have to get rid of them. Like, the cells in the toes got rid of the ulcers and they started replenishing themselves and just becoming healthy.
Our next guest, Jason Applewhite, is here to share amazing technology that only requires a soak in the tub, being used by Olympic athletes, professional football players, professional basketball players, and yes, even regular people like you and me.
Water structures the cells, light activates them, but oxygen is what's needed to power those cells. And so to have healthy cells, you need ample amounts of oxygen. And so what happens is, as we're kind of on a hypoxic curve as we age, we get less and less oxygen in these cells. And that's when those cells.
Hi, my name is Chris Burris. I'm a longevity expert and the chief scientist at a lab focused on a longevity molecule. My primary focus is to help people live longer and better lives with science. Make sure to subscribe and share so you and your friends can live longer and better, so you and your friends can live beyond the norms.
Hi, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Beyond the Norms Health and Longevity Podcast. People pay thousands for hyperbaric chambers to reduce inflammation, speed healing, including from injuries and surgeries. What if you could bypass the claustrophobia-inducing hyperbaric chamber, not to mention the cost? And what if a simple soak with oxygen nano-bubbles triggered the same response at a fraction of the cost? Our next guest, Jason Applewhite, is here to share amazing technology that only requires a soak in the tub, being used by Olympic athletes, professional football players, professional basketball players, and yes, even regular people like you and me. The data and research are clear. Oxygenating the body is absolutely a net positive when it comes to your health and longevity. Jason, a co-founder and CTO of Bimini Hydrotherapy, is here to share arguably the easiest and most cost-effective way to experience that oxygenation. Jason, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
So before we jump into your area of expertise, I always like to go further back. Much further back. What was it like growing up little Jason? Where did you grow up? What were your parents like? And if there was some event or someone you could pinpoint as the reason you would ultimately become the co-founder of a wellness company focused on oxygen delivering value to professional athletes and the everyday Joe, what or who would that be?
Good question. So starting back, so I grew up in a town called Sugarland, Texas. Mother and father went to school there, played basketball, baseball growing up, all since I was young, all the way up through high school. I could have played college basketball, decided I knew I wasn't going to be in the NBA, so I went to Texas A&M and got my degree in biology there. And the plan was always to kind of become a doctor, get in the medical world. And so while I was studying for my MCAT, my dad at the time, he'd always been an entrepreneur, had small businesses. He'd found this thing called 3D printing, which this was like 2009, 2010, and it was brand new in its infancy. And he's like, hey, come on a appointment with me. We're going to NASA, and they're looking at getting some 3D printing. And so he became like a distributor for 3D Systems, which is one of the largest 3D printing companies at that time. And so we went down to NASA, and I was just kind of there just to support. And he saw all these engineers sitting around a room with this 3D printed part that's printed all as one piece that had this crank on it. And they were just blown away, fascinated. And they're like, oh man, we're going to do so many neat things. They ended up buying a $500,000 system on the spot. I was like, oh man, this looks easy. So I got involved in the business while I was studying. I was like, you know what, I maybe don't need to do another, 8 years of school. And I kind of saw where like the medical world was going. This was still, 2010. So it was way before COVID and all that other stuff. But yeah, I pretty much became an engineer by trade, helping other engineers develop products through additive manufacturing. And so people would come in with napkin drawings, say, hey, can you help me design this part? We design it, print it that same day. They'd have it in their hands. So I worked with companies like Dell Computers, NASA, Halliburton, all the big oil and gas companies here and in the Houston area, making their drill bits and trade show models pretty much because we 3D printed them all. And so I did that, selling systems and making engineering parts for about 8-10 years. And then that's, so yeah, I'd say my dad kind of gave me that entrepreneurial spirit because I kind of started with him, and yeah, always wanting to create. What I always say is I like people that produce and create more than just being a user of things or going out and just being a consumer. It's always better to be a producer and make things in life.
I have consistently, and by the way, for the audience listening, I visited Jason at his facility because he's here in Houston, and got a chance to see the facility, have a good conversation with him, experience the bubble bath. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
just not a bubble bath. Well, it is a bubble bath, right? It's a nano bubble
Bubble
bath.
bath. Yep.
And so, we probably connected on some of this, but I am still looking for a reason to get a 3D printer. I haven't, I just haven't been able to justify it yet. But you were talking about, 3D printing for, Dell, NASA, kind of
Yeah.
maybe wrap up that thought since we got cut
So
off.
yeah, then by trade, I kind of became an engineer, helping those guys, create parts that they needed for their business, and then also people off, the street. So yeah, we had a doctor come to us and said, "Hey, I got this nano bubble generator," and we helped kind of refine it and make it a better nano bubble generator. And we were using it for the industrial applications, and so from that side, I became engineer. My dad had the entrepreneurial mindset, and then starting Bimini, we can kind of dig into that next. But yeah, so that was the journey from childhood to pre Bimini.
That's very cool. So, you're working on these 3D printed parts, right? You said a doctor came to you, but my understanding is the first kind of use of this nano bubble technology was in more environmental applications. Was this like a PhD doctor, or was this like,
PhD,
yeah?
or he might even been. He got involved in this company that had this device where you could use friction to create nanobubbles through a certain pathway, and so they had it in 8 different pieces. And so I got it in my hands. I said, let's make this into one part. So we did that. We got patented, and then they started using it for fish farms, agriculture, wastewater treatment, anything dealing with water and cleaning it up, or helping crops and fish get a higher yield. And so that's mainly still where a lot of the nano bubble space is. So if you type in nano bubbles, you can look and see how it's helping, clean up lakes in Florida, how, certain fish farms in Chile and Canada are using it to help their salmon farms.
So he comes to you. He's got multiple parts. You 3D design this into one part, and that gets patented,
Yep.
right? And so you kind of get drug into this nano bubble kind of arena.
Yep.
What is the like? Right off the top of my head, I think of a fish tank, and there's, you always want a bubbling in the fish tank, and I'm assuming that's related to oxygenation.
Yes.
What is the value, one, for the fish, and then two, for on the environmental side? When you say cleaning up, like why does oxygen help versus, I don't know, nitrogen?
Yeah, so this can be used for any gas. So they use multiple gases based on the application. So oxygen, we use it for the health side and a few other sides, but main thing is most bubbles, they off gas eventually. So you can run any type of air bubble through a microstone, or they have, I don't know if you've ever seen those little stones where you send stuff, it kind of breaks the bubbles up a little bit so they're a little bit smaller. And so if you see a fish tank, they have a lot of those. And yeah, fish, just like us, need oxygen to be able to function and live. And so what happens in a lot of these lakes and ponds is they become, so the algae takes over. They have these algae plumes that consumes all of the nutrients and oxygen intake in the actual pond, and it kills like the whole fish life. And so what they found at these salmon farms is by putting in these oxygen nanobubbles, there's a much higher concentration of oxygen in the water that doesn't off gas. And most of these are in like a bay, like a large body of water. And the fish, because of that, were getting much bigger growth. Like they they tested it in one pod and they were like, hey, our salmons are getting bigger. They kind of drew it back to the Jurassic days. We're like, hey, there's more oxygen prevalent, and they're just getting, a larger yield. Same thing with the crops. They started with marijuana farms up in Canada, running different things from oxygen, nitrogen, depending on what it needed. And they just, started increasing yield that way. And
Wow.
then they started using it for lake and pond remediation. There was swimming pool companies doing it where they would use ozone instead of chlorine to kind of help these, not having to put chemicals in the pool. So that was, beneficial. And so anything where you have a liquid and you want to inject a gas, not have it off gas, because most bubbles, they're high buoyancy, so they rise to the top. Even the micro bubbles rise to the top. But these nano bubbles, they are negatively charged, and they pretty much create this little water perfect spot where they just stay suspended for months and months at a time.
Wow, for actual months. Wow.
Yep.
Okay. So this is cutting edge technology. You're increasing fish yields, or the people using the technology are. They're cleaning up, using kind of remediation. Do they use it in like sewer plants and stuff? Is that something that
I mean, they're even down to oil and gas. So a lot of water is being used for fracking. So cleaning up that water, sewage. Once they remove all of the decontaminates and it goes through all the filtration process and everything else, they're starting to use some of this technology. So there's a wide array of applications. You can chat GPT, what are nanobubbles used for? And I mean, the list is growing. And especially as we're on a planet where you're, trying to conserve the highest quality of water, for multiple applications. And so much water is being used, like tapping into aquifers just to do certain things. To recycling that water is going to become a big deal, right?
A bigger and bigger issue. Excellent. Okay, so we've got these environmental applications. When do you or your dad, right, more the entrepreneur, or somebody starts going, hey, there's some parallels potentially, and did you draw the parallels with hyperbaric chambers, or was there some other kind of inroad into this as a health application?
So we had this little makeshift unit in our office because we were running tests through our nanosite, which measures the concentration of oxygen. So we're getting like over 100 million bubbles per milliliter of water. So this device tests that, and then it measures the size. So we're between 50 nanometers to 150 nanometers, which is less than 0.1 microns. And so we were running this test, and then we had a little bucket that we would kind of dump all the water into. And then my dad had plantar fasciitis at the time, and so he started soaking his feet in the water. He's like, let me just see, if this will help. He goes,
can't hurt.
Yeah, it can't hurt. It's just oxygen and water. And so after 3 sessions, his pain went away, and he was able to walk with no pain. And then we made it into a bathtub. So he's a bathtub guy. He enjoys taking hot baths. So he's like, let's make a system where I can just incorporate this in a bath. And a lot of his other pain and inflammation went away in his legs. And he went from playing basketball up into his 45s to where he was almost 60 and could barely walk, to now working out again. And so he started calling it his fountain of youth. And he's like, hey man, this is, I soak and I feel like I'm younger the next day and I have more energy. So it's like, this is my fountain of youth. And that's kind of how we came across the name, and looking up, as I think we talked about, because you were talking about using Bimini in the past, Ponce de Leon, looking for the islands of Bimini as the mythical island, fountain of youth. And while we say he never found it, we've kind of created it with these oxygen nanobubbles to kind of help oxygenate the tissue more, to kind of create more energy in the body and the cells, to make your tissues feel and be younger. So getting rid of inflammation, pain, and he's like, I'm back on my surf. This is his statement. He's like, I'm back on my surfboard playing basketball again. And he's 65, and he went through a phase there where he was a couple years there, he was having a hard time moving around.
So you start with this anecdote, right? And I always believe like intuition is a lot greater than we realize, right? And so your dad's like, I should stick my feet in here. And then his plantar fasciitis goes away, and then he's like, I need a bath of this stuff.
Yeah.
Are you watching this going, that's just crazy? Like, why are you why are you wasting? Yeah, maybe there's some placebo going on. When do you start kind of drawing more like, hey, we need to turn this into a product. We need to,
Well, yeah, that's where he kind of stepped in and was like, hey, if this can help me, I'm sure there's a million other people with similar pain that I have. And so if we can, this is before we actually had a product. So he's like, if we can package this in a, somewhat small area, because it was all plumbing and hoses and buckets and all this. It was very rudimentary. And so we pretty much partnered with Rice pretty quickly after that, a local university here in Houston. And we pretty much made our big pro unit for their underwater treadmills and started doing testing down there and said, hey, if we can kind of prove that we're delivering oxygen into the body, into the cells, and then also get more of these reactionary studies done, because we were mainly focused on human performance, because he was like, hey, I'm able to perform and do more, which goes hand in hand with recovery, right? So you're recovering so you can perform better. And so that was back and then COVID, it was like right around COVID time. So this was like 2019, 2020. COVID hit, delayed us like another year and a half from actually making the product. We finally made a product in 2022 and started, shipping the pro units mainly to universities. So that was our first target was, hey, these trainers are working their butts off trying to keep these guys healthy. They all have hydrotherapy whirlpools. Let's just have a system that taps into their hydrotherapy whirlpools, and they can put 12 guys in at a time, oxygenate, and help keep guys healthy on the field. And so that's where we started. So we started doing all the National Athletic Trainers Association events and all these things, and we mainly focused on the athletic side initially until pretty much last year.
That makes a lot of sense. It really has parallels with kind of Elon Musk's how do I bring the electric car into the mainstream, and I start with a high margin, desirable sports car, and then I move into the cars that make sense, and those kind of institutions have more money to invest. Did you initially get? By the way, interesting. We have parallels with Rice University because that's where our molecule was discovered, right?
Nice. Yeah.
Right. So we also visited Rice to figure out how to make this molecule back in.
And for those people that don't know Rice, we call it the Ivy League of the South, because they're not the greatest athletically or well-known school for football, but they have a lot of money going in there for research, and they are one of the top research institutes in the area, especially I believe in Texas. And so they're a great partner for, like you said, for you, for us to kind of. And they're open to like trying new technologies and figuring out what works. And so,
I think it's a top 10 bang for your buck school in the country.
Yeah.
Like it's an amazing university. So did you get results from those initial tests with Rice before you started kind of moving into this market, or your dad is just the classic entrepreneur is like, this worked on me, we should start selling it? Or
No, we did it. It was like a year and a half of testing. We still were working our other job, and this was kind of like it was a side project for a number of years. And so we just kind of kept at it, and we had a few doctors that would come on board and do a few studies, and then we'd get some, showing oxygen perfusion using SMO2, which is reading the saturated oxygen levels of your muscle. And so we started doing that and getting just more results. Like the more people that we get, then we pretty much had everybody we could talk to that had pain. We said, hey, just come get in the tub. And so after about 1,000 people over the course of like a year and a half, we finally said, okay, we got to really package this thing to make it work. This is not just we don't want to just make this a hobby and just have people hop in this tub every day. But, and then, so that's when we started really focusing on the product, what it's going to look like, be. And like you said, we had to start somewhere. So I still feel like we're working on that Model 3 version of what Tesla is today. But so we started with the Pro unit, then our Eco, which we pretty much took an oxygen concentrator, gutted it to get it to market faster, and then put all the plumbing, the oxygen side, and then our nano-bubble device on there. And that's our NanoJet Eco that we pretty much sell.
And that's
mainly to homes.
And that's basically has two tubes that'll go into your bathtub, right?
Yep.
One to take the water out, and the other one to put the nano-bubble oxygenated back into the tub.
Yeah, so the main thing we need is water to transport the oxygen. So as long as you have a bathtub or a bucket or anything, we're using water as that transport medium for these oxygen nanobubbles. And we can kind of dig into the nanobubble science a little bit, but yeah, they're so small they don't off gas, and their skin's 25 microns. These are less than 0.1 microns. So they pretty much we get 100 million bubbles per milliliter water, so it's highly concentrated. And then so as you
hold on, 100 million bubbles per milliliter of water.
Milliliter of water, yeah. So I'll send you.
Wow.
I'll send you the nanosite chart so you can kind of show on this if we do a reel.
So I because of our product, right? 5 mils is 1 teaspoon. So you're talking 500 million nanobubbles in a teaspoon.
Yeah. Even more than that, because it's over 100 million. Yeah. So as you soak in water, your body it's being surrounded by these oxygen bubbles, and then they eventually burst right inside the dermal layers, and then they start getting in. So it's like, and then as they burst, more oxygen's just being put on the skin. And so it just kind of recycles. So what we found is after about 15 minutes, your soft tissue is getting oxygenated. It's got through all the dermal layers. And then so we recommend, a 30-minute session, your tissue is fully oxygenating and getting saturated.
One of the things when I visited your facility, as you talked about, and actually we were at Hack Your Health in Tampa, and you had a foot bath.
Yes.
And you were talking about how just putting your feet in this nano-bubble oxygenated water will increase your oxygen, even up to your head, right? Like through your entire physiology. Talk a little bit about that and what that looks like. So do you need a 15-minute water bath, or maybe that needs to be a little bit longer, or what does that look like?
So, obviously when we originally created the products, we're like, okay, this is going to be a full soak kind of thing, or the part of the body that's has pain needs to be in the water. So that's where he started, obviously, with his feet in the water, my dad, and then doing the full body soak. So we're like, okay, your body's, the more surface area of your skin in the water, the better, right? You're getting a higher concentration of oxygen going into the body. But then we started getting with some of these doctors like Dr. Noah, Dr. Bob Meyer out of Austin, and they didn't have the space. Say, hey, we love this, but we don't have the space to put a full bath tub. And so they just started having a bucket where we originally started and soaking people's feet. And they started getting benefits in their people's labrums. They would do like they were constantly using like a pulse PMF device, and then they added the oxygen, and they're like, hey, with the oxygen, it even expedited the healing process even more. And they're like, we're soaking their feet, and their labrum and their hands are getting better. So what's going on here? And then that's when we started doing more like cerebral tests. And then we had an Alzheimer clinic get it, and they started, most of the people at that age like are either wheelchair or they can't get into a tub for just, safety reasons, getting in and out. And so they roll them over to a bucket, soak their legs, and then they started getting these cognitive benefits because the brain is such like an oxygen sponge. Like it's 2% of the body mass, but it consumes 20% of the oxygen we intake. So it's like, it needs a constant flow of oxygen. And then as you age or have these kind of Alzheimer dementia, there's certain things not firing, and it helps kind of replenish that brain tissue. So that's why Dr. Amen out of California, I've talked to him a few times, but he was so big on hyperbaric chambers. Like, hey, if you've got Alzheimer dementia, get in a hyperbaric chamber. But at that stage, a lot of the people can't handle that pressure, right? And and you have ear problem, eye problems, and so this is another tool we say to help supplement oxygen, into the body by soaking in water.
When did you first start kind of comparing and contrasting, right? There are different technologies, but HBOT versus kind of Bimini hydrotherapy.
Yeah. So that was all from the athletes. So after Rice and the university level, like a lot of the pro athletes that found out about us either training at one of these universities that had it, like SMU. We started getting a lot of people up in Dallas that are sports performance centers that we'd have systems, and they had all done hyperbaric chambers for the most part. And so they were like, yeah, we know the importance of oxygen and how it helps us recover much faster. And so they were like, we can do a bath, and they started soaking. And then they said, hey, in one Bimini session for 30 minutes, it feels like 2 90-minute hyperbaric sessions. So we started kind of comparing the two, and we had a lot of customers that, anecdotally would say, hey, this is how I feel. I actually just got with the governor, Rick Perry. He's one of our customers. He was the ex-governor of Texas for a number of years. And he's on this Ibogaine initiative, but he's like, hey, I got a guy that wants to do a comparative study on HBOT and your device, because he goes, your device is my favorite biohacking tool. So I told him, I was like, hey, this is the greatest oxygen supplement device that I've ever experienced. So he's like, we just want to put some data behind that. And but really, it started with the NFL athletes that had done HBOT, understood the importance of oxygen. Obviously, there's EWOT, exercise with oxygen therapy. The main difference is both of those still are sending oxygen through the lungs. So you're either pressurizing it at a certain atmospheric pressure in the chamber, or you're exercising with it with EWOT, which is a 95% pure oxygen, breathing it as you exercise and get your heart flowing to kind of increase that blood flow. And so the main difference is we are using the skin, largest organ in the body, the skin plus the endothelial layer to get oxygen into the capillaries, to get it straight to the feet, the hamstring. So what we've seen a lot of benefit are people that have limited blood flow to their feet, like neuropathy or diabetes, where they get foot ulcers. So we're taking oxygen straight there, and it's helped. We've had so many people call us up, say, hey, I was going to have my toes removed, but now by soaking my feet, I have my toes. Like, I didn't have to get rid of them. Like, the cells in the toes got rid of the ulcers, and they started replenishing themselves and just becoming healthy. I mean, we can talk about the importance of oxygen, but it's what creates 90% of the ATP and energy in our body. It's that last phase. Like, you can biostack and do a bunch of other things, but without oxygen as that last kind of energy provider, these cells become unhealthy, right? And so one of our doctors, his name's Dr. Chris Cormier, his big things are oxygen, water, and light. So water, what does he say? Water structures the cells, light activates them, but oxygen is what's needed to power those cells. And so to have healthy cells, you need ample amounts of oxygen. And so what happens is, as we're kind of on a hypoxic curve as we age, we get less and less oxygen in these cells. And that's when those cells either become unhealthy or die. And that's when those mutations and kind of chronic illnesses start taking place.
So one of the things, as you're describing these athletes, do you have any swimmers that you can swim against a jet, so you're in kind of a confined? Is the technology robust enough, or any device robust enough, and it has to be, right, because of the environmental situation, where you could nano-oxygenate like an Olympic swimming pool?
Yep.
And so that's one. Yep. So I think the answer is yes, right? Yep. Maybe not with anything directly from Bimini, but certainly from the environmental side, right?
Yes. Yeah. So there's swimming pools with using this technology out there, and it's funny. This one high school is a Jesuit school. They had implemented it, and everybody started breaking the records, not because of what the oxygen was doing for their body, but the buoyancy and how many oxygen nano-bubbles were in the water. They made them more buoyant in the water.
Changed the viscosity of the water.
Yeah. And so they were able. So people that shouldn't have been able to break records were breaking records that they were like average swimmers. And the guy's like, we've had that board up there for years. And since we put this in, every record has been broken because of the water, structure of the water change.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. And then I also imagine like you could do a much smaller pool where they're just jets and man, okay, so many applications. Are there any risks? Like I compare and contrast, right? Because in the intro we compared and contrasted kind of HBOT, which is hyperbaric oxygen therapy, with the Bimini nano-oxygen bubbles. Are there any risks? Like you talked about comparing one Bimini session with two 90-minute HBOT sessions. Are athletes, they shouldn't do more than 90? Are there risks in HBOT? And then what are, should I not over-oxygenate my body? What does that potentially look like?
Yeah. So that's a great question. Because, too much of anything can be toxic, right? So too much water, and so it's finding that balance. So what I will say is, with today's kind of modern lifestyle that most of us live, beyond the performance athletes are all trying to gain the edge. So they're breaking down their muscle fibers, building up lactic acid, and they need to flush that out immediately. So that's where the oxygen comes in and flushes that out and helps them recover at a much faster rate. But for normal people, say us, we work, we go home, we're doing things, with certain vices in life, or certain people with chronic inflammation and pain, we are on this path of like less pure oxygen. So if you're not getting outside daily and taking deep breaths to get good oxygen, because air is 20% oxygen. And so as we sit down, we stress out, we have shorter breaths, we're not getting the proper amount of oxygen in our bodies that we should. So I would say everybody, for the most part, is deficient in oxygen to a degree. So supplementing it is going to become more and more popular and needed. Obviously we started with pro athletes, but then we went with chronic inflammation, chronic pain. But I think in general, just as in energy mode, if you were crashing in the afternoons, it's not a coffee problem. It's most likely an oxygen problem or some other things, the nutrients that you need. But to offset that, soaking in oxygen nanobubbles for days at a time, it could be harmful. So you have to breathe pure oxygen for about 24 hours to really start getting that oxygen toxicity in the cells where it's just too much. So with our treatment times, it's about 30 to 45 minutes, an hour if there's like a lot of inflammation or chronic pain or some injury present. And so we usually try to max it at an hour. Some people have gone to 2 hours, but I would say if you sat in there for a full 24 hours taking an oxygen, you would get lightheaded and your body would kind of start to feel, whoa, like I got some oxygen toxicity. So usually start with a kind of just a lightheaded, kind of dizzy feel. And then, we've had some people that are really deficient of oxygen. We've tested their muscles and they're really low, like 40% or less. And you kind of have to step them up. Like you can't just go from that to a full hour in oxygen nanobubble. So like do a 20-minute session or a 30-minute session. That way they don't get that like rush of pure oxygen that their body needs, but it's too much at once, right? So you kind of got to like stair step them into it. And so, we say do a 20, 30-minute session initially and kind of build up to that hour.
And in general, when you're saying session, are you talking kind of a bath session or is it a foot session or is it potentially longer with a foot session because you have less surface area?
Less surface area of the skin. But we've had people that, or high altitude, say up in the mountains training, and they'll do a foot soak for like an hour. And it was too much at once just by soaking their feet. Like they could start feeling it in their head. We, depending on where you are, what you're going through, we always recommend 30 minutes. And then, we've had people do 2 hours, no problem, but I wouldn't recommend that for, obviously the first time, but it's mainly oxygen and water. So, but with anything, like you can drink too much water in a day and make yourself feel sick. So
in a short period of time.
Yeah.
And the indication, right, that you might sense is a lightheadedness, kind of like if you were hyperventilating, or
Yeah. So yeah, you can do it right now. Like we can do breath work. So if you take like 10 deep breaths, like,
yeah,
and then your head will start, you'll start to feel it. And that's like oxygen getting to the brain, like at a much faster rate. And so, yeah, you can kind of do it to yourself with some breath work. And the more you do it, the more, tolerance you get to actually getting, good oxygen. And what we've seen is people that do it, their HRV and their, has improved dramatically at their heart variability rate. And so, there's all kinds of different, tools you can check. A lot of people track their sleep. That's one of the side effects is like, since the brain is so impacted by oxygen, the more sleep you get, it seems like the more REM cycle you get per night of sleep. And so people come back and feel much more rested because they're like, hey, I've never slept, a full 9 hours, but I did last night after a session. And that's when your body heals, right? It's like when you're sleeping is your body is like pretty much recovering. And so sleep's very important.
Yeah, my kind of, because we get that kind of testimonial from our product, and I think it has to do with when you're facilitating proper mitochondrial function,
Yep.
right, with this added oxygen, then, in my mind, there's this checklist of things that have to be done when you go to sleep. And if the mitochondria is in good shape, then that is already checked off on the checklist. Now, this is a horrible description of how sleep works, but in my mind, like that piece of the checklist is already done, so you can get focused on some other things.
Hey, super quick break from the podcast. Hopefully you're loving it. This is a way you can support the podcast and take advantage of a great offer. We're offering 50% off of one of our MCT bottles. MCT is an amazing oil. Add the ESS 60 molecule to it. It's even more amazing. All you got to do is leave a review on iTunes, send us a notification that you've left that review. We'll get you a coupon code that'll get you 50% off of our MCT oil and free shipping. Back to the podcast.
You mentioned potentially crashing in the middle of the day, and maybe that's related to oxygen. You do have water, like nano-bubble water, right? Is that's kind of a new product that when I visited you were either just starting or?
Yeah, we have this this Puro 2. Sometimes I'll splash this on my face, and like halfway through the day, and like kind of wakes me up because I get like oxygen right through the face. But it's called Bimini Puro 2. So we came out with a facial product, and then, obviously looking at different drinking water options. There's, a competitor out there that most people that are in the nanobubble space have heard of. It's called Cocoon, and they make Cocoon water. They sell baths for like $100,000, and they started in cancer where we started in athletics, and we're kind of like, merging in a way. But yeah, so looking at different ways to kind of get more oxygen into the body. Obviously you can do it through the gut, but we feel like it's actually more efficient soaking it in these nanobubbles and getting it through the skin. And then this facial product, it's 2 ingredients. It's distilled water and billions of oxygen nanobubbles. So oxygen is a great detoxifier in terms of killing anaerobic bacteria. So it helps with any inflammation, redness, acne, anything like that. And you just kind of put it on the sponge, you apply it on your face and let it air dry and let the oxygen nanobubbles kind of get through the initial dermal layers of the skin.
So you think of that kind of container as more of a topical, or you could also just drink it?
We made this for a topical. We are looking to make some others that would be more drinking with some added minerals and whatnot. But,
and you've got some advantage over hydrogen, I think, right? Because hydrogen is just such a small molecule; it'll escape basically everything.
Hydrogen's so reactive, and it off gases so quickly. So, I mean, if you do the hydrogen tablets, you got to drink those pretty quickly within a couple minutes to really get the full effects. We do have cancer doctors using both. Hydrogen is a great molecule for removing free radicals in the body. So, we do have people, drink it, hydrogen water while they soak in the oxygen. They do 2 different things in the body. Oxygen is needed for that mitochondrial function to create the ATP and the energy that every cell needs to function, whereas hydrogen's mainly that free radical remover, right? And so those are the main differences. But yeah, there's hydrogen baths out there, and I don't know the full efficacy of those because it's so reactionary, and I don't know. It's a small molecule, so yeah, it's probably getting in some degree, and then people drinking it have had success as well.
Yeah, I remember one research paper that was they drank some hydrogen water, and they could see the reduction in inflammation on the limbs, right? So on the arms, in pretty quickly because it just diffuses so rapidly. So you would have the advantage of it would actually stay in water, right? Like so when you can deliver the water and it's got the nanobubbles in the water.
Yes.
You mentioned
In a
that
certain, I wouldn't say in plastic. I would say in a certain material. So it's either got to be like glass, or glass is the best, or like an aluminum type bag.
You mentioned kind of lactate and kind of speeding recovery. So you're getting that testimonial. Well, first off, is there one kind of testimonial that happens the fastest? Like if somebody's having maybe some neuropathy in their limbs because of diabetes, that seems to resolve pretty quickly, or is it the athletes because they're pushing themselves so hard? Is there some kind of collection of testimonials that tend to show a kind of more rapid response?
Yeah. So obviously, like somebody that's just going in that doesn't have a lot of pain or inflammation, they're not going to feel it right away because there's not like they don't have that big marker of, hey, I'm really injured and I'm getting better. So I would say the mostly is pro athletes that know their body pretty much better than anybody. They'll do a workout and they know usually the recovery time on how much they can do the next day. And so the next day they're like, hey, like Derrick Henry is one of our athletes, and Jamar Chase. And so they work out in Dallas in the off season. And so they go work out, get in, and then Derrick Henry be running hills the next day. And he's like, I'm at year 10, year 11 in the league right now. And he goes, I feel like I was running hills like I was in college. And it's like, after he gets out. So that was like our first testimonial from him. It was like, it gave him that extra boost. Like he's like, I feel like I'm a running back at Alabama, And so those guys are usually pretty good. They're like, hey, most of them are doing other recovery things, but they're like, hey, when I added this, it really changed the game for my legs. And they call it fresh legs, whether it be track athlete. Gabby Thomas, she won 3 gold medals. That was her same thing, as like she was training for the Olympics in 2024. She got our system, and it really helped push her to where she feels like it helped her get those golds, right? Because she was able to push her body and recover at a much faster rate. And then in performance wise, they do a session before the game, the day before. And so you'll get a reduction in lactic acid buildup over the course of the game because their tissue is so oxygenated. And so in the fourth quarter, where some of them are starting to get gassed, especially like NBA guys, like now they still feel like, hey, I can go to overtime when my legs are still fresh. And so that the recovery aspect and the performance side, both of them are parallel. And then we've had people with gout that have come in like on crutches. They've been ultra inflamed. And then about 30 to 45 minutes after, it's greatly reduced. And in some conditions like neuropathy, that'll be like into the next day. So you're almost going through a full sleep cycle and then having those benefits the next day. And then some of them just over the course of like psoriasis, a lot of the skin issues, maybe take, 4 or 5 sessions to fully get rid of those. But yeah, anybody with limited, the guy with the ulcers in his toes, he did 3 sessions before he was supposed to meet with his doctor. And after those 3 sessions, the ulcers were completely gone, and his toes actually showed life again, like they were healthy. And so now and then what we tell people is there's some residual effects into the next day, but it is kind of a way of life, right? So the one treatment's not going to heal you for forever. It depends on the condition. So we have people doing mold detoxing and all kinds of different stuff. But for the whole part, it's supplementing. It's a supplement. So you're supplementing oxygen just like you would like a vitamin. And so it becomes part of your like routine in life. Just ending the day with, oxygen soak.
Are you familiar with NewFit or Newbie technology? Also based here in Texas.
Yeah.
They're out of Austin.
Yeah, I think I've heard of them. Yeah.
So it's an interesting, they're using DC current, and I went in to treat my plantar fasciitis, and really my calves had gotten I think before we started the podcast, I mentioned my calves are just garbage. And they're in great shape now. And a lot of it is deep tissue work, right? Because they're knotted up, and also this new fit newbie technology. In one part of that, of using that therapy modality, my feet are in a bath, and they have the electrode in the bath, and then the other electrode is actually on my lower spine. And it just seems like you guys might have some parallels there, where if that bath was also an oxygenated bath,
Oh yeah.
it's sending, and they also, that technology also has testimonials related to kind of diabetic neuropathy, because it's reconnecting the neuromuscular connections at that kind of extended thing. So it might be an interesting conversation for you guys
I agree,
to have.
because at Rice they were really he has a similar device that he uses on his athletes. His name's Dean Miller, and he's like, hey, if we just put this in the water, because this frequency, like you said, the DC current will go through the water and it will kind of have that elevated effect. And it was interesting that you were doing that in the water. But yeah, it's part of that light mechanism in the body. It acts, that pulse or that current is part of that light of activating those cells, and then having the oxygen coming and power them. And so we've had the same success with like pulse PMF or any other frequency device that's activating those cells and charging them, and then following it up with oxygen. It has had compounding effects. If we talk about stacking modalities, that's like the perfect stack.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, maybe well, and I want to talk a little bit about this. Your first device, kind of bigger device for hydrotherapy systems that might seat 12 people at a time. Your next device, I think, was a smaller bathtub type device. Then you have a full tub that can actually, it can heat, right? So you can elevate the temperature, so you're experiencing like a hot bath. It can cool, so you could be doing cold plunges with nano-oxygen bubbles. And you did point out when I visited, there's a time frame, like you can't, it doesn't shift between cold and hot in 10 minutes, right? It's probably more like 8 hours.
Our most popular option is just the heater without the chiller. We threw the chiller in there because some of the guys wanted to do it in the morning, but most of the pro athletes have them. But yeah, we mainly recommend, warm water to, comfortable. So you're not begging to get out, because you do have to like sit in there for at least 15 minutes, and you can't do that in ice cold water. So, but yeah, we do.
Although I did go on a wellness retreat, and we were at 8 minutes, and I was quite comfortable.
Yeah.
Now the water's not moving.
Yeah.
You start moving that water around, that changes everything, and right. And so that's one aspect.
It's like wind, going out in cold and having a windy day versus not windy day. It's like, man.
Yeah. That's water chill factor, that wind chill factor makes a big difference. And then so that's kind of your premium product, right? I think you were working on a smaller version, like a portable version.
Yeah.
Is that ready, or is that still?
Yeah, I'm actually going to bring it out to A4M in Vegas. It's a portable version. We had a lot of guys that travel a lot, and so they were traveling with our existing home unit, but it's on wheels, but it's not the best. You still have to put it in a box and take it. So this one, we pretty much have everything embedded inside of a hard shell case, right? Like what people would think of like a Pelican case or whatnot. And then you have the hoses coming out from there. And so, that's we were shooting for the end of this year. It looks like it's going to be beginning next year when we start kind of really ramping those up. But it's, the prototypes are going well.
Do you guys sell to like therapy companies and they have these baths available, or is that kind of lower priority for you?
What do you mean therapy? Like the spa
So,
companies?
where I went to get the newbie, new
Oh.
fit newbie technology
Yeah.
was at a local therapy house.
Yeah, so we a lot of chiropractors, a lot of wellness clinics, and then we made this new chair version, which is soaking people's feet in an embedded like massage chair. So it
Mm,
was pretty much like a um, a foot chair that you go into a nail salon, and we
yeah.
embedded all our tech inside of it, have the oxygen concentrator, and so the issue with our other products is they were made for specific the Pro for big whirlpools, the Eco for home use. And then people were looking at these clinics like, hey, I love it, but I need something that I can just get somebody in and out quickly to a degree. And it look,
Yeah.
like everything flows together. And the Eco is mainly for a bathtub. And so we created this, it's the NanoJet Hydro Lounge chair that has all our technology built into it, and that's gonna we're taking pre-orders now, so that'll be more of like
Mm.
what you see in these clinics. A lot of the wellness clinics that are already like IV clinics that are already doing like 30-minute IVs. Now they're
Ah,
soaking in
perfect.
oxygen while they're doing the IVs, and then anybody else stacking, red light, other modalities. Now they can just oxygenate by sitting in a chair.
And any plans, and we'll talk about price point, kind of rough price point here in a second. Any plans on a much smaller unit that could just service, the foot bath, right?
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
that on the
So yeah,
radar?
that we're making a mold for right now. So I don't have
Yeah.
pricing, but that's coming out. So like a standalone foot unit that's kind of
Mm,
by itself. We had to do some like custom engineering and molding. But yeah, that's the next one. So the chair was easiest because it was bigger. We could embed everything
yep.
really simply, and then the other unit will come out probably later next year.
Very cool. And what's kind of rough price point if somebody wants some access to some unit at their home?
Yeah, so right now we sell the NanoJet Eco, which is about $300 a month through a firm. So we have financing options. So what does that break down to like $10 a day if they finance it? There are a few. There's an option where without interest, like an interest bearing option, and then if you were to buy it outright, they're like 96.50. We had if we're at certain trade shows, we have discounts down to about 8,500. But yeah.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So before we get to our wrap up questions, anything that I missed, maybe you want to make sure we touch on?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we pretty much made these products because obviously it helped my dad, and we were like, hey, man, it's like if this can help one person, it can help millions, right? Just like why anybody gets into anything is just trying to put out something good that can help people in the world. And after the COVID thing, trying to help people empower their own health instead of being so reliant on a system that wasn't working. And so now by being able to do more things at your own home that can kind of help your body recover and perform, that's really what we're passionate about hearing these stories of how we're you know helping people, and that makes the job so much easier because as as an entrepreneur, like there's good days and there's like really bad days of like going through the stuff trying to some parts get tied up and it limits the shipping, and there's little headaches that you could kind of get into the business that you're constantly trying to overcome. But the success stories kind of outweigh all of that, which is which keeps it keeps us going. And so yeah, we're looking at trying to make more and more products that more people can get access to. Obviously, we had to start at a certain price point just because everything we were making off of what we were selling was going back into inventory. And so, like we talked about with Tesla, yeah, he made his vehicle a supercharger, and now we got to the Model 3. I think we're getting close to our Model 3 that you will be, more people get access to, and at a more, price conscious, point. So, yeah, we're working on that, daily because we know how much impact it's had on so many people. So we're like, hey, we want to get this in many people's hands as possible. So, you don't have to buy $100,000 tub, a $10,000 device, but something that's, manageable, and you can, take control of your health.
Yeah, I love that. What's the next event, maybe one or two events that you're planning on going to?
Yeah, so we'll be out at A4M in Las Vegas. That's the big functional medicine. So the last year was our first year there, and we went from transition from full athletics to functional medicine and chiropractors and wellness clinics. And so we've had like a full year in that now, and it seems it's really going well, as more people become conscious about, what they're putting in the body, what they're, lacking, and, what really helps them perform at, just the day to day, right? It's not about we'll get into this in a little bit later, living longer, but living a more higher quality, vibrant life of mobility, because motion is lotion. As long as you're moving, your body's doing well. So that's the goal. Is you can live up to 100, but if you're in bed for the last 10 years, it's not really living. So we want to help people actually live and get out there and play with their grandkids and go on vacations and all that fun stuff.
It's pretty cool because at the beginning you were talking about how your dad was kind of looking like he was slowing down, and because of injuries, like moving in that direction, and this technology really turned that around. So that's pretty exciting. All right, time for our wrap-up questions. Jason, do you have a target age that you want to live to?
Oh, I'll go 90. 99 is a good age. I feel like
I like
short of 100, but yeah, 100.
Yep.
A full century is. If you live a full century, that's a pretty cool thing to say. So,
and how long do you think humans can live?
That's a good question. What's the oldest is 124, 26 or something?
Yeah, I think there's some debate, and it's fairly resolved, although I haven't dug into the research. Some people that I trust have shared with me, it's fairly resolved that Jean Clement did not live to 122, that she was replaced with her daughter.
Oh, really?
So it's probably about 119 right now.
119. Yeah, so I think 120 is a good spot. 125. But yeah, that's a long time.
What are 2 to 3 protocols, habits, mindsets, let's call them shortcuts, to longevity and a long health span that you would share?
Getting outside, like first thing in the morning. Obviously, right now, like first thing a lot of us do is we check our phones. I do this too. I'm checking emails and everything else, but I can tell like my best days are when don't look at my phone right away. I get outside, take some deep breaths, and get some sunlight on my face. Like that's the cheapest and best thing I think you can do in the morning. And then obviously like starting like with an electrolyte drink, like not just water, but some electrolytes to kind of get yourself going. Excellent.
And do you think, are there 1 or 2 things that you think people get absolutely wrong regarding longevity and a long health span?
I don't know. I feel like most people are in this space pushing a product, trying to do some good because they've had something that worked for them and they want to share it with others. You can every life's like an equilibrium. I feel like we swing way too far in certain directions at certain times. And so we went way too far, Western medicine for, 40, 50 years. And, these next 20 years, we might swing way too far the other way and need to find like balance, right? So not everything needs to be a biohack, but yeah, it's the main thing is empowering the individual that knows what's going in their body, and giving them the knowledge base to like say, okay, this will help me kind of live a healthier life, so I can do more.
Excellent. And Jason, how can people contact you?
Yeah, so obviously our Instagram is Bimini @Bimini-Nano. And then our website, BiminiHydrotherapy.com or BiminiOxygen.com. You can use both. And then we have Facebook, LinkedIn as well, Bimini Hydrotherapy.
And if they happen to be going to A4M, they can actually try out the foot bath.
We'll have the same setup we had in Tampa. Yeah, so the bucket. We won't have our chair ready. We're kind of getting everything ready right now for the first of the year. But I was trying to get it so we could showcase it there. But I think we're a few weeks short. But yeah, so yeah, we'll be out there with the setup, and yeah, come by for 20-minute session.
Excellent. And Jason, what in the near future are you excited about?
Oh man. I mean, there's a lot. I feel like there's a consciousness awakening on an individual level that also as a community, that a lot of people are kind of going through right now. And also spiritually getting back into like what is spiritual like awakenings. Outside of what people think of like needing to go to like church, obviously, but like just connecting with a God or a higher power to kind of find your calling and purpose in life. Yeah, those I always like that stuff, and obviously, anything alien related, I like learning about of what exists beyond what we know now to be true, right? So yeah.
Very cool. All right, you can find him on social, Bimini Nano, BiminiOxygen.com is probably the easiest one. Also, BiminiHydrotherapy.com. Jason, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it was a great time, Chris. Always a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Live Beyond the Norms podcast. Make sure to subscribe and follow. Also, make sure not to be that guy, the guy sharing this podcast with people who are not interested in living beyond the norms. If you would like to learn more about the ESS60 molecule, the molecule responsible for the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, a full 90% extension of life, visit myvitalc.com. That's myvitalc as in carbon.com.